Good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome back to another episode of the Soul Citizens. I am your co-host, Griffin Gaming RPG, along with my fellow co-hosts. Let's see, we've got today, as you guys know, we're going to be talking about aliens in the verse, and hopefully you guys are getting pumped up for that because it's going to be an interesting show. But I want to bring on and introduce, for those of you who've never seen or met them before, very first person I'm going to introduce is the man himself, the professor, our authoritarian and the Soul Citizen team, Mr. KEMI65. What's up, Kimmy?
07 to you Gaming Griffin RPG. 07 to you fastcart. My guys are in the house. We're ready to rock. Welcome, chat. Let's do this. Aliens in the verse. I'm excited.
Awesome. Hey, Silky, good to see you. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight. And Hybrid Game, thank you for dropping in on a Sunday. And we will also, for those of you who don't know, the ambassador of Star Citizen, the man himself, fastcart FC. What's up, fastcart?
I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm doing okay. You know what? This is one of those Sundays. I don't know. Usually, I kind of have a panicky week. Like last week, I had to do a Zoom conference, and that ended like literally 30 minutes before we had to get together for this show. But this week, it was a cruise. I just went over, took care of my mom, came home around 3 o'clock, and chilled. Worked on some of the graphics for the show today, and it's been like a really nice, easy Sunday. Kimmy must have been thinking about me because we got some Florida weather in Chicago. It was like 75 degrees here today.
Yeah, it's warm here in Boston.
Nice? Yeah, one of those days where you can kind of open the window when you're driving and get a little breeze, or open the door in the house and get some fresh air. So today was great. I'm off tomorrow, so I can chill. This is like the biggest thing I have to do, and this is no work because it's fun hanging out with you guys. So this is all good. It's all good, and of course hanging out with you guys in chat. Mm-hmm.
I just want to say I can't wait to talk about Canadians. Aliens in the verse.
Oh, there you go. He's starting
hey,
already.
Chat. You notice Griffin gave us monikers here. He called me the professor. He called FC the ambassador, and we got to give him one. He's the hardest working man on the internet.
I was going to say he's the director. Call Griffin the director.
Not the hardest working man. Trust me, there's a lot more jokers out here working harder than me. Paul Shelley. Anyway, I don't know how that brother turns out videos like he does. That's like a job. I'm doing it.
Well, technically, yeah, it is.
Yeah,
money from it. Yeah.
Holy smoking!
You know what? I'll be real, man. I'm like, man, wait a minute. It's people cleaning their house. They streaming so damn much,
dude. I don't know, man.
Clean your house.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I appreciate the effort, but it's a lot of work, man. You know, all the editing. I mean, it's one thing to record it, but you got to go back and edit it, create graphics, do all that stuff. I mean, sometimes. I mean, I'm sure some of you guys out there in chat, you guys know that it's not easy being a streamer. I mean, we're here because we enjoy doing it. We're not here trying to make a big buck or anything like that. We just really feel like we have something to contribute to the community.
We're not.
We want
it's
to do
passion,
it.
though.
No, we definitely ain't here for the bucks. I can tell you that now. You can look at our PayPal account. That'll tell you right there. But
it's definitely passion. Let's put that out there. Not paid, but passion.
Yeah, it's definitely the fact that we love it, and we like hanging out with each other too. So yeah, Colossal. I know the Florida weather came up from you guys. Yeah, I know. Don't let me get started on Florida, and you know what I mean when I say that. All right. So anyway, we are going to talk about aliens in the verse today, and before we get into that, the show's going to be in two parts. First part is going to be us giving you guys some background and history on the aliens that we know about, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the ones we don't, and then we're going to get into one of the SCLs where the lore team really went into in-depthness about the aliens in the verse and things we can kind of look forward to. So let me present this as a question. Now, my buddies who are here don't know everything I'm going to ask them. They were a little bit prepped, but they were only about maybe 40% prepped on the question I'm going to ask them. So in chat, you guys can chime in. I would love to see your votes on this question that I'm going to present to them. So here's the question. Okay, get ready. All right. The picture that's on the screen right now, my question is, how will we as citizens in the game distinguish when we have run into aliens or when we have quote unquote run into creatures? Now, before you answer that question, let me give you some background here. You know, there's always the discussion of how did man evolve, right? Some people believe we were created. Some people believe that we evolved over a period of time. I'm going to go with the evolution piece for now. Doesn't mean that's what I agree with or disagree with, but I just want to use that as a model. If you go by evolution, and if someone had come to our planet some centuries beforehand and saw us when we were somewhere between an amoeba state and a primate state, they may have looked at us and said, look at those creatures, right? And said, they're nothing but creatures, and we're going to just take over their world. Space Clown, thank you for the 2-month Amazon Prime. Thanks for kicking off the day for us, Clown. Thank you so much. So here's my question. How will we know when we go to these different planets in the systems, how will we distinguish what's a creature and what's an alien? Particularly when it's one that we don't know anything about. We know about the Banu, we know about the Taveran, but what happens when you run into that thing that you've never seen before? How will you personally distinguish it? Will it because it spoke to you? What if it doesn't speak? And you guys can answer that. Let me go with fastcart. He raised his hand first, so go ahead, fastcart. What's your answer to that?
Yeah, when you first raised the question in pre-show, like, what's the difference between sentience and sapience again? I had to look it up to remind myself. But sapience is thinking and sentience is feeling. So most creatures can feel, so that'll be sentient. But we don't know about whether or not they can think or not, which is sapient. And, how do you tell whether or not a creature is thinking or not? And you can say, like, if they can use tools, they can use fire, they can use weapons. If they can use weapons, then probably intelligent and sapient rather than they would make them an alien versus a creature, in my opinion.
Okay. Now, Kimmy, based on what he just said, remember that scenario I said, what happens if the aliens had come here several thousand years before we started handling tools and weapons and decided to stomp us in the ground? Would they be right for doing that? If they came and took over our world because we had not evolved any further? What do you think? Do you think that that we have the right to do that in the universe? Will we have the right to go see some quote-unquote creature's planet and take over?
That's funny you say that, Griff. Having the right to do certain things, and with the lore, there's the fair act chance of things. So with that said, and how we look at sci-fi in itself.
Can you explain the fair act to some people? Because some people may not know about the fair act.
Oh. Okay, yeah. So basically, fair act is when you discover, or when the UEE has deemed a planet that has teeming life in it, that there's these particulars that they do to look at the life forms and decide to say, well, they're on the path to sentient life. And so you have to give them the fair chance to evolve. And so with fair act chance, you have to make sure that you do things that will not interrupt their life path into evolution. So that's kind of the gist of what the fair act chance is all about. So they set parameters and strict guidelines as to what you do on that planet. Basically, you leave those organisms alone and you give them their fair chance to evolve.
Until the fair act is like basically the UEE version or the Star Citizen version of the Prime Directive from Star Trek.
And that's all fair and good for those planets that happen to fall under UEE jurisdiction. But what happens when we go outside of that? And I'm not asking you what should happen. I'm asking you in general, do you think it'll be fair game? Do you think it'll be up to the discretion of the players? Or do you think we will do like humans often do? When we find some place we want to occupy, we kind of just mow folks down. What do you think will happen?
Well, based on that picture you showed, those are predators, man.
I'm
not going to stand there and say, well, based on the fair act chance, I'm going to let this Yeti bee slap me, or I'm going to let this space crab pick me apart and let the babies do their thing to me.
Okay. Okay. So what's your reaction if you're getting ready to land? And you saw either one of those down in the area where you're going to land,
get the hell out.
Would you leave, or would you decide to go ahead and say, I've traveled all this distance. I heard there's some serious laranite on this planet. Them suckers are about to get toasted. Which one do you think you would do?
It's a business decision, right? So you're basically putting forth, to me, it's a business decision. So
not a moral decision. Not a moral decision. It's a business decision, huh?
Right.
Okay.
It's a business decision.
I just want to know. I just want to make sure we clear.
You put laranite in front of me, Griff. So you put laranite in front of me. You made a business decision.
You colonizer. Okay. Go ahead. I hear you.
So with that said, I do not want to deal with the death of the spaceman None of us.
Okay.
And so whether it's us, we're not going to deal with. We don't want to deal with that for the spaceman. We're going to look at each other and talk amongst ourselves and try to decide some things. But if we got the red shirt NPCs, that's a different story. They go out and scout and see what's going on and report back once you do. And then you hear the screams, the blood curdling screams outside the ship, and say, "Well, it's not worth it."
That's a good point.
The only way I would go out, if I see that Yeti, I would need a lightsaber so I can cut off his arm. But otherwise, I'm getting the heck out. So no, I'm not gonna mess with him. If it's like, you know, if it's nighttime, they're sleeping, or they're like daytime creatures, or I can come in at night and sneak in. Maybe it depends on how many people I bring with me or stuff like that. They can cover me while I'm there, but by myself, nope.
Well, it's interesting because I'm looking at what Colossal typed into chat, and Colossal's kind of spanking us a little bit here. He says, "What if it happens to be the only being left on its planet? Shame, shame, shame."
I'm gonna live, Colossal. I'm living.
The only being on the planet. How are we producing? It can't be the only.
No. I think he's just saying, what if they're the last of their species? What if they're indigenous to that planet and that's their land, and you stumble across them? I mean,
yeah.
You know, I'm curious. He says shoot first, beg for forgiveness later. Is that it?
No, that's not
me. When he says
that's
shoot first, I mean it comes with the premise of, are they hostile? You know.
What if they're defending their land, man? They come up there and see you digging and you mining and stuff, and they say, well, who are these jokers that showed up? What's up with that?
Right. For me, it's defense.
Well, even though the creatures are already there, I have discovered. No, I'm kidding. I'm not going to go there. No, if they're defending the land, I would understand that and not mess with them.
But how will you know if you can't communicate? If you can't communicate, how will you know?
If they're trying to attack me, and I'm like within distance of them, that's a fair amount of communication in my opinion.
True, but my point is, animals are often predatory, and so are sentient, or as you mentioned, sapient beings. So how will we distinguish? I guess that's my question. And the reason why I'm laying this out, guys, I'm challenging my partners here because I'm stimulating the conversation for later, which is that we know what CIG has told us that they would like to put in the game, but there's a lot of stuff that we don't know that they're going to put in the game. Yes. And to Kimmy's point, there are a lot of people who are in the verse for business. They are out there to survive, and there's nothing wrong with that because the verse is a very hostile place. And then there are other people like fastcart who might decide to say, I don't know enough about this moon or this planet. That crab looks pretty big, and it looks like he's looking at me. So I think I'm going to go to the next moon. There are going to be all these decisions that we're going to make. And let me tell you, wait till the first time somebody lands on somebody's planet and they lose big time. You know what I mean? I'm talking about like some jokers come with their Idris with about 60 people thinking they're going to clean house, and the house cleans them and leaves their Idris down there empty. I can't wait. Yeah. I can't wait until that story goes through the system about some org who went to some planet thinking that they were going to conquer it, and they got conquered themselves. So
sandworm.
Oh, dude.
Sandworm.
Yeah, so and we did see one, right? We did, right, Kimmy? We saw one in 2016. We saw a sandworm.
Oh God, yes.
Yeah,
and I saw some people jump when that sandworm came up and surprised them. I'm like, okay.
Desert Raiders. They were just going across the sand in their land speeders or whatnot. It was just like they were in pursuit, and out of nowhere they were on the buffet. Man.
Yep. So anyway, that was our whole question about differences between creatures and what will we be determining as aliens. I just wanted to kind of throw that out there to the guys, just to tease them a little bit, but I also wanted to tease you guys who are watching. What we're gonna do now is kind of give you guys a quick overview of the different aliens that we've been told by CIG or that are going to exist in the game. And Kimmy's going to read some. I'm going to read some. Fastcart's going to read some. There's a little bit of reading here, so bear with us. This first part is going to be a little introduction, and we'll give you a little history on each one of them. And then, of course, if you have questions and stuff, feel free to toss them into chat for us, and hopefully we can answer them. Admiral Kusanagi, good to see you. Thanks for coming. Gladestone, Admiral. I saw you walk in. Chain Dragon, good to see you, buddy. Good to see you, buddy. All right, so why don't we go ahead and kick it off let's see with our first one. Hopefully this will come up if my thing works right. Let me give some background history. Many of you guys might recognize this character here. I'll let fastcart or Kimmy say who it is that they see on screen once it pops up. It takes a couple seconds for them because it's a little bit delayed.
Well, if it's going in order, I'll just start. But
no, it's not in order. It's not in order. That's why I told you
I'm
to
all
wait.
over this one right here.
Okay, Kimmy, who is that?
This started with me with Chris back in the day. We're talking Wing Commander. This is the Kr-Thak.
Not according to Admiral Kusanagi. Look who he says it is.
Yeah, he said it right. Kr-Thak.
No, he said Mufasa.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
He's so wrong. Oh my God.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Admiral, shame, Admiral.
All right, so go ahead, Kimmy. Finish telling us the background on this real quick. Who is this?
This was a game changer for me. And when I go back in time of playing Wing Commander, and Chris basically made me go under the hood of my 386 SX 16 megahertz computer and put in 1 meg stick. And then he made me buy the speech pack so that I could hear the Kr-Thak speak. But these were the big bads for Wing Commander at the time when they were having the war, and who you were really fighting to go against toe to toe in the Wing Commander games, the very first Wing Commander, and you had to get the speech pack to hear your wingman speak as well as hearing the Kr-Thak speak at the same time. But these are cat-like beings who've evolved and were not just sentient but very intelligent, and they were warlike. Mm-hmm. And so they saw mankind as a threat, and then they went to war.
Thank you. Very good background. Fastcart, next picture. Kimmy gave us the background on them. This came up from Wing Commander. For those of you guys who remember Wing Commander, later on when Chris makes the movies, he takes it a little bit further and develops them a little bit more. And then we get this image here, right? Okay, Fastcart, can you talk about that one a little bit, just a little bit?
This is like, I want to say 1999 or 2000, but yeah, they had the Wing Commander movie. I think it was Chris Roberts' first movie, and you know they didn't have quite the budget that they wanted to have. So the art director and some other people clashed about what they wanted the Kr-Thak to look like. So they wound up looking like this, and people were some people were not happy. I mean, to me, at the time they might have looked better, but you know they look kind of cheap if you look back on it now. But yeah, so I mean, it advanced the story, and you get the idea of what they wanted to do, but they didn't quite hit their mark.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
If only they had Andy Serkis back then. But this was back in 1999.
Yeah, this was all practical effects, you know, back at the time. But the reason why I'm highlighting this is because aliens have always been a central part to Chris's stories when he's made his games. And, you know, a lot of games that we play, I know when I came out of Eve in particular, even though there was lore about other races and other groups, the fighting, for the most part, always ended up being between human against human. But I think that it's important that we do have these other races that we interact with, sometimes because of trade, because that was another thing that didn't happen in games like Eve. But I love the idea of being able to have trade with certain races and groups because maybe of the uniqueness of what they sell. Kimmy has talked about this before, that some systems you may go into, certain items may only be in those systems because of the uniqueness of those systems. Whether you're doing battles and who you're fighting against, I think that there needs to be where you can set up who are the allies and maybe who are your enemies. So Chris has always kind of had these two universes that exist, and that's one of the reasons why we're talking about aliens today. Because a lot of times we've been so focused on org against org, but we've never really talked about what happens when it's you and you're confronting some new alien race. And they've told us in the game that there are going to be some races that we don't know about that we will literally discover. So just want to keep that in mind as we cycle through. Okay,
that's a good point, Griff. Mm-hmm. But don't the aliens always set that mystique in the story that it sets the groundwork for this mysterious thing about them that we don't know, and we're always trying to know bits and pieces about them, how they operate.
Yep, absolutely, good point. All right, so let's take on our first one. And fastcart, I think this one is the one that you decided to pick, and we all know why fastcart may have picked this particular race. He is one of his favorite ships. But we're going to talk about the Banu. So fastcart, why don't you go ahead and by the way, you're going to see 2 images for all of the creatures that we've got so far, at least the ones we have images of. The first set of pictures are going to be usually concept drawings, and then the second ones may be concept drawings that came out later.
I'm looking at the picture now. I almost didn't recognize them.
Yeah, just so you guys will know, that'll be the case. It'll always be like 2 images of each of the races that I'll pop up. Go ahead, fastcart. You can start.
Nice.
Okay, so the Banu are alien race and humanity's first interstellar friends. They are renowned for being focused on commerce and trading. Banu-aligned star systems account for 7% of the known star system universe, which means that they govern 6 of the 90 known systems. That's small compared to the UEE's 42%. Within the governed space is just one of the 4 binary star systems, Bacchus, or one of the 4 star systems, Bacchus. All of the Banu control systems contain high population. As traders and merchants, they are proactive about cultivating a commerce in their spaceland. It is not uncommon for Banu to build flotillas to support pockets of consumer traffic to encourage the development of trade hubs. From an economic perspective, they're holding their own, with only 30% of their system falling into low economic range. This is compared to 100% of the Banu system and 70+% of the UEE. History. Humanity's first interstellar friend, discovered by nav jumper named Vernon Tarr, who was out exploring and nearly started a war by taking a shot at the Banu planet. We helped smooth that over. That Banu, as it turned out, was on the run from local officials for embezzling funds. Once our two civilizations came together and signed the first interstellar peace and trade accord, we began to trade technology and help each other expand into the universe. Once they spread out, they formed the Banu Protectorate and to oversee all of their systems. The Banu are the traders, culture hound of the universe. Their planets are varied and colorful. Many tales of intrigue start with the murky valley of Banu cities.
Okay, very good. Fastcart, let me ask you a question. You've always talked about your Banu merchantmen. Are you interested in just the ship itself because of the history of the ship and what the ship is capable of? Or are you interested also just as much about the Banu as well?
Kemi is doing our thing. Don't think I didn't see you just there. I saw that. No, I am interested in the Banu. Some people are crazy about the Xi'An language and everything. Like, I'm sure we're going to hit that later. Some people are crazy like that. I'm waiting for the Banu language to come out, and I might try to. I'm not saying I'm going to learn it particularly, but I'm going to try to dive into it as much as I'm able to. So I'm interested in more than just the features and what the merchantmen can do. I'm interested in the culture as well, because what they say about the merchantmen is that it's handed down through families or maybe hereditary or stuff like that. So I definitely want to hold my own if I ever come across a Banu in game and they're like, oh, you have a merchantman, and do conversation that way.
Okay, cool.
You can earn a reputation point probably.
Very, very cool.
Because, I mean, if I ever do lose that thing, even though I have LTI and whatsoever on it, maybe I want a second one somehow. So that may help.
Okay, cool. Okay, is this one on me? Is this one of the ones I have to do, the Hadesians? Is this one me? No, you guys didn't pick this one, right? Okay, cool. Another race that was mentioned is the Hadesians, and I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right, guys. There's no picture of this one. They're a race that this is in the past, that inhabited the Hades system until about 300,000 years ago, when they destroyed themselves in a civil war. They possessed weapons of planetary destruction, as evidenced by Hades 4. Hadesians were roundish, 7 to 8 feet tall in height, and their bulky central body had multiple thin appendages and a pair of long arms. Now, that's all that we know about for the lore for them. But I guess, and I'll throw this question to Kemi before he reads his. Kemi, the fact that they give us this bit about them, right? Do you think that there's a reason why? I mean, we know the Hades system is going to exist, but do you think that we will find some artifacts, technology, or maybe even find out that they're not as extinct? Or if they are extinct, do you think that there will be something in game? Because they gave us this piece of chunk of information.
Exactly. Based on the description, we expect to see them to some extent where they've been maybe replaced out to some other area. And you kind of can recollect back on that description and say, wait, this is a Hadeshian. And say, well, wow. And maybe there could be some interaction that they could lead you to some more artifacts. So we don't know, but that possibility still exists because they haven't closed the door on it. But for the fact that they've opened that up and said that this exists in the verse and there is a possibility for this. And again, don't sleep on CR and SIG in that regard of them just, like you say, Griff, arbitrarily putting something out there just for the heck of it.
Good point.
And one thing I want to put out is that they said that the Hadesians are around us and 7 to 8 feet tall, and they have multiple thin appendages with long arms. Maybe that crab is some form of Hadesian.
Yeah, maybe. That's a pretty big maybe. Well, here's the thing that did stick out to me in the description, and we're going to move on because I think Kimmy's got the next piece. It's the sentence where they said they possessed weapons of planetary destruction.
They're smart.
Now, I'm wondering what it is and whether we will find something in the game.
They have a Death Star.
Well, whatever.
Basically.
But I'm just saying, we always talk about how they don't put stuff in the game unless it means something. And I mean, it could be just lore, right? It could be just myth or lore. But it would be really interesting if there is something on a technology level. Maybe it's not on a planetary level, but because they emphasize this thing about them having weapons and being evidently warlike or very technology is really high, maybe there's something that we can gain in that system if we look hard enough, buried, whatever the case may be. So anyway, I'm going to move on because we got a lot of stuff.
Move on.
No, go ahead, Fastcart. Make it quick though, because we got a lot of stuff to cover.
I just had a quick question. Like, if you found a weapon, a planetary destruction weapon, would you want to use it on the Vandal?
No. That's too. What you bring down for that moment of satisfaction would probably not be a good thing. Yeah, you're asking for it. As far as I'm concerned, I don't know if that's a good thing. And if you've got those suckers in multiple layers, you got dozens of them. But who knows, right? We can get into that subject later. All right, Kimmy, it's on you with. I think we've got the Teverin next, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, the Teverin, or some of us call it Teverin or Teverin, are the first alien race that humanity waged war against, not just once but twice. And regarding their history. The UPE first established contact with the spacefaring civilization in 2541. While not as technologically advanced as humanity, the Teverin were beginning to strike out into the universe. They're proud, they're a martial type society. The Teverin wanted humanity's resources and launched an offensive against them. Wow. While the battlegrounds never threatened Earth itself or Terra, what the Teverin lacked, technically, they more than made up for in their strategic brilliance and endurance, causing the war to last over 4 years. But the turning point was the infamous battle of Idris IV, which introduced a young officer, Ivor Messer, to the populace of the UEE. You got to read about Messer, but after the Teverin defeat, the UPE terraformed the Teverin systems for human colonization. The remaining Teverin were either absorbed into the UPE or fled to the Banu or Xi'An systems. So in 2603, a new Teverin warlord, Kr-Thak, emerged from the corners of the cosmos with a rebuilt Teverin battle fleet and launched his first attack against the UPE systems. Their sole mission was to reclaim Elysium 4, their former homeworld. While it was a sympathetic cause that some humans could support, the UPE wasn't about to give up territory, period. This war lasted 7 years and touched almost every corner of the UPE. So on June 24th, 2610, Kr-Thak suffered a catastrophic defeat at the hands of Squadron 42. Oh yeah, at the Battle of Centauri. With his fleet rapidly falling to either the destruction or surrender, Kr-Thak mustered his remaining loyal pilots to make one last desperate charge for Elysium 4. Though they suffered an additional 70% casualty, his fleet finally reached the atmosphere of their old homeworld. Then Kr-Thak and his pilots lowered their thermal shields and dove for the planet. With this second defeat, the spirit of the Ta'veren race was irrevocably broken. Imperator Messer II used the victory to cement his place as ruler of the newly Christian United Empire of Earth.
Are you muted?
Thank you. I was. Muted. No, I was. Thank you very much.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
One of the things about the Ta'veren that we know that we benefit from is their technology. We know that we've got the Prowler, and now we have the Shrike coming in, right? And the what's the ship called again, guys? I'm blacking out here.
I just remember the Shrike, and the other one is...
What's the name of that ship, guys?
Oh
come on, chat.
Shrike and
what's the ship that's coming out in December? The Talon.
Talon.
We're benefiting from their technology, and as you guys know, in the UEE, there's been a lot of, and we'll see this in the video later, they'll talk about the 3 different states that Ta'verens are with the UEE. Some people want to assimilate and be a part of the UEE. Some of them don't want to have anything to do with the UEE, and some of them don't care about the UEE, but they are a part of the UEE. That was a nice read, Kimmy. Thanks. I know it was a lot there to take down, but thank you. Who's got the Kr-Thak? Is it you? Fastcart? Go ahead.
I do. Ready?
Yep. Ain't no pictures, so go ahead. No pictures.
Okay. The
Not yet,
Kr-Thak
anyway.
are based on the idea of Eric Wingman Peterson. History. Humans have had no contact with the Kr-Thak. What is known to the UEE about the Kr-Thak comes only from the Xi'An. The Xi'an and the Kr-Thak have been enemies for 700 years, and for the UEE to try to make contact with their allies' enemies is a difficult political decision in the works. Xi'an probably arrested the freelancer howler Jink Gallon in 2943 for such an attempt. The Xi'an Emperor has been quoted stating the Kr-Thak are the enemy of the Xi'an. The Kr-Thak have a long history of war with the Xi'an. This conflict, known as the Spirit Wars, has lasted 700 years.
Okay, very cool. This is one of the things that I wanted to highlight in here, and Fastcart read this was based on an idea. For those of you who remember Eric Wingman Peterson, this goes way back. We're talking way back. Hanger. And they developed this story about this particular race. We don't know anything very much about them beyond that paragraph that Fastcart read. No images, nothing like Kimmy said, at least not yet. But understand, and some people have wondered whether or not there will be some inspiration here from the Cathari because of the way the name is spelled. Yes or no? Maybe not. Maybe it's another form of some cat people thing, or we don't know what they are. But it would be interesting to see if they pull that out of their hat and what they're gonna create that particular race to be. Who's got Xi'An?
All right, let's get into it. All right, the Xi'An. They're the second alien race to be discovered by the United Earth Empire. The first being the Banu. So the Xi'An are the masters of diplomacy in the Star Citizen universe. They are patient and refined, but can and will throw down if the situation calls for it. They've lived for centuries. For this reason, propagation of the species is carefully monitored and directed by the government to prevent overcrowding. Sounds like China. While their placid demeanor can often be interpreted as aloofness or apathy, their long lifespan means that they act with decades in mind, not years, very similar to a turtle. History. The Xi'An Empire became known to humans in 2530 when the Gaia Planet Services attempted to terraform a planet without authorization. Turns out the planet wasn't uninhabited. A new race, later to be discovered as the Xi'An Empire, showed up while the terraformers were building the equipment. Can you imagine that? This encounter immediately escalated in a 259-year Cold War, 2530 until 2789, in the darker era of the human history. The Imperator and government often used the Xi'An threat as a means to terrify their own citizens and swell the power of the military, McCarthy era in the 50s. Although neither side declared open war, there were many casualties on both sides from covert operations, sabotage, and espionage. Due to their extended lifespan, wow, there are Xi'An from that era that are still alive. So can you imagine their mindset? Thanks for the sub, Chain Dragon X. Due to their extended lifespan, there are Xi'An from that era that are still alive, such as Kr, the current emperor. That was a tongue twister. He's the current emperor who negotiated the Daring Peace Accord with Senator Akari in 2789. The Xi'An and humanity have had a tumultuous relationship over the years. While the Xi'An have generally regarded humanity as short-sighted and impetuous, they have acknowledged our capacity to destroy and treated us accordingly. While their technology might seem superior to ours, it certainly looks nicer. Most of that is simply due to its alien origin. Our two civilizations are on relatively equal technological footing. This ability for mutual annihilation is probably what kept either side from attempting an all-out attack. The Perry Line, 2789. This is a line of systems that acted as a no man's land between the UEE and the Xi'An, a neutral zone system. These systems, Tohil, Oya, Gurzel, Horus, Pallas, Hadar, Indra, and Virtus, became known as that Perry Line. After the peace treaty of 2789, that Perry Line was divided between the UEE and the Xi'An, with Tohil, Oya, Gurzel, and Horus going to the UEE and Pallas, Hadar, Indra, and Virtus going to the Xi'An. So they divided it up. So there was basically a neutral, what you see as the neutral zone in Star Trek with the Romulans and the Federation. This is that sort of thing, the Perry Line, where there's a dividing area that it's split up between the two races to keep the peace. Very interesting.
And one of the things that you mentioned, Kimmy, was about the technology that quite often people assume that because their technology kind of looks very cool and sleek, that it's maybe a bit more advanced than ours. But it's actually just more because it's alien more than, it's better per se. It is interesting to see, though, how they have combined. Was it Aegis that they combined with to work on stuff?
No, it wasn't Aegis. It was the Reliant.
Yeah, but they merged with somebody. Was it Misk? Okay, Mitsu, whatever their name is. Okay, Misk. Yeah. So they've worked with them to develop a hybrid for their ships, which is what we see reflected in the. You
see the Xi'An Scout and the Reliant kind of do the same thing, that vertical positioning.
Yep. And the Reliance is probably one of the really good examples of that technology. You're right, Kimmy. That one is probably one of the better examples of their technology. Thank you for that read. Okay.
I want to add something real quick before we go on. And I'm going to make it real quick. Now, they do say we're on equal footing, but we've yet to see the Xi'An Scout and the Centaur Ya really perform 6 degrees of freedom or flight in space where it can vector on a dime, like a hummingbird or some sorts. So we've yet to see that. Even though we're on equal footing, that advantage of flying that type of ship in zero space is going to be incredible to see.
Very good. Good point. And by the way, they did mention, CIG mentioned a couple shows back that they have started working on the characters for the Xi'An now. So that's the next one that's coming up, gang, is that we're going to hopefully see. We've seen some Vandal stuff just recently. Hopefully we'll see some Xi'An stuff not much further behind that. So that would be very, very cool to see. Okay, now let's move on to, let's say, the aliens of a little bit more infamy. And that would be the Vandal. Wow. Another anonymous gifter. Thank you for the 2 anonymous gifts, anonymous gifter. We really, really appreciate that as a community gift. Thank you. And LearnBird, as we said, thank you for the follow.
Gladstone, thanks for the sub, man. Thank you so much.
Okay, the Vandal, pronounced Vandul, or sometimes referred to as Dual, are a sentient, nomadic living species of bipedals. Male Vandul live on ships and form organized groups called clans or hordes. The Vanduul made its first contact with humanity in 2681. Since these first encounters, they are usually aggressive toward other races, especially humans. All attempts of humanity. Doc, TK, thank you. Oh, 500 bits. Thank you so much.
What?
Thank you.
Doc,
Thank you.
07.
The Vanduul made first contact with humanity in 2681. Since these first encounters, they are usually aggressive toward other races, especially humans. All attempts of humanity to contact them peacefully have failed. After a big wave of attacks against the human-settled sectors between 2681 and 2712, the fall of Caliban, Orion, and Virgil, they raided constantly UEE's western border territories. Their conflict with the UEE in the Tiber system over the following 250 years has led to millions of dead human soldiers and civilians. As a result of the recent attack on Vega 2, the UEE Senate declared formally an interspecies war against the Vanduul on 29/45/1111 and confronted them in the Oberon system in 2946 called Operation Mandrake. This image that we have on screen is one of the earlier 3D images that we saw that CIG put together, and then later they would put together an image that was much more realistic that we saw in a few of the clips. And this one is a little bit more of a vicious look for them, and I think this is kind of closer to where they are now in development. The Vanduul are basically our mortal enemies. Evidently, according to history, UEE has made attempts to contact them, to negotiate with them, to communicate with them, and they don't want to have anything to do with us. In fact, in the description, it says that humans are on the bottom of their food chain or their list. They really don't care about us, even though they are at odds with many other races. There's also an aspect that someone mentioned this in chat earlier, that they do trade with the Banu, though. Somewhere or other, the Banu have worked out something with them where they have some type of relationship, even if it's nothing more than economic. But it seems that there is some type of, that they can have a relationship with who they want to, or maybe when they feel like there's somebody that benefits them, and maybe they don't see humans as someone that they benefit from. Hey, fastcart.
I have two things. I should say that as a result of attack on Vega 2, the Senate declared war formally. I believe that the Bishop speech, and I'm not sure, but 29/45/1111 is probably the date of when the Bishop speech went online on YouTube, because that's like close to the anniversary sales that I'm pretty. So I think that those two correlate. The other thing is I have here, I think it was Chris Roberts, one of the law team or something like that. But the Vanduul are based on an historical group in alive. It was either the barbarians or the hordes in history. So they have some kind of real life interpretation, inspiration. That's the word, inspiration.
That's a very, very good point. But Kimmy, were you going to say something? I'm sorry.
It's very compelling. You guys make really great points from this race of alien who is considered to be our big bad in game. But some of the things that Sig mentioned, and some of the things hailing from the love letters of sci-fi and human nature as well. For me, in my perspective, and taking all this in, I don't see them as truly evil. I see them as a force of nature. I see them relative to what locusts do to fields of corn and grass. They go from one area, suck the resources, and move on. If you go back and hail back to the love letter of Independence Day, where you had these alien or Oblivion, those movies where you had these aliens that come in and see Earth as or the systems as resource pools where they just gather it up, suck them up, and keep moving. And then the thing that you mentioned, Griff, to echo that further, is that relationship with Banu, and going back into the history of Banu and the two. What are the things that are similar outside of them trading? Is that they'll hodgepodge and patch together different cultures' technology to form their own simulation of what their tech is all about. Banu has been known to do that in their culture, as well as the Vanduul in their technology, in their ships and such. And another aspect of one of their ships that kind of fall into that cadence of what this is all about, they have a harvester that comes and actually hits into the planet and then starts to suck the the resources out. It comes and basically strips the planet itself. It's called the harvester. So there you go.
Doc
They also have
TK, thank you for the 100 bits, Doc TK. Sorry, Fastcart. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah, they also have the driller too. They did a trailer for that a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
It's like a minute-long trailer, but it's like when you see it, it's like, whoa. That was the first time I saw it.
Chain Dragon asked the question. He said, "Are they meat eaters?" Chain Dragon, I will throw the question back to you. With those teeth, what do you think the answer to that question is? Now,
they're not vegetarians.
If you're asking,
not with those teeth.
Yeah, they don't come for the harvest vegetables.
Now, if you're asking, do they eat humans? That's a whole nother story. There's nothing to mention about that. But they are ferocious. I just dropped this picture in. I meant to put it in earlier and I forgot, but I just dropped it in. Just to give you a perspective, their range is supposed to be around 7 to 8 feet in height as well. They're definitely physically more dominating than a human being is. So that will be what you have to deal with when you happen to run into them somewhere. We were just talking about this on Friday's show. Go ahead, Fastcart. What were you going to say?
I remember the Gillian Anderson behind the scenes video 4 years ago. When they showed Gillian Anderson what a banjo looked like, she was holding a gun that they were using as a prop, and her first question was, "This is going to work on that?"
Yeah, exactly. It was exactly that was her response.
Yeah,
and the reason why we want to mention this, for those of you who got the letter this week from Fastcart and Kimmy talked about this on Friday, the Squadron 42 email. If you guys got that, make sure you open it. Don't ignore it.
November 4th.
There is an animation in there that shows the Van Duel and how they look now with animation in Squadron 42. And you get an idea. You'll see this is a very large alien. They also leap, for those of you who remember. They don't just run. They can leap great distances, like probably... To me, it looks like they can leap anywhere from 8 to 16 feet, probably.
Yes.
So they will be an interesting foe. And as I think Kimmy mentioned this on Friday, if they've got on armor, you might have a chance. You might want to run. If they don't have on armor, you want to run. Yeah. So
yeah, their body can resist space, the colds of space.
Yes.
They don't need any kind of suits like us to deal with the rigors of the environment of space.
Absolutely. Okay, the last ones I want to hit on here, just to cover this real quick for everybody. There are some other races that are mentioned in lore. We're not going to go into them, but we just want to drop these names in your ear so you can keep your eyes and ears open for them. Doc, thanks again for the 100 bits. Oh my God.
You're awesome, Doc.
A couple of the developing races are the Orm, which we know they are a primitive race in the verse. The Asonians, which are another primitive race, and the Fairs. They're of an ape primate race or primitive race. Now, the reason why we're mentioning this is because as we get ready to watch this next video from CIG, they are going to be talking about this. So just kind of keep in mind, as we mentioned earlier, and a lot of times we just talk about the Van Duel all the time or the Xi'An or whatever, but there are going to be more than what we have seen or been told about in the game. So, just kind of know that they're not telling us everything, and they don't want to. They want us to explore and discover this stuff in the game. So let's go ahead and jump in. If you got something to drink, something to munch on, this is going to be a great time to do it because we think you guys will enjoy this, okay?
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Star Citizen Live. This week is our Alien Week Roundtable. I'm your host, Jared Huckabee, and if you've never seen Star Citizen Live before, it's where we take about an hour out of our days at the end of a week, usually on Friday. Are there any other days at the end of the week? Probably not. It's a good show already. To basically sit here, hang out with some of our Star Citizen community members. Sometimes we answer questions. Sometimes we explore process. Last week we made a ship with concept artist Sarah McCullough. This week we have the esteemed members of our lore team here to discuss to kick off Alien Week, which is our celebration of all the different cultures throughout the Star Citizen universe.
You're killing us. Thank you so much. Thanks for the 200 bits.
I guess. So let's go ahead and go around the group and introduce our panel of guests. We'll just start in the upper left here and just go clockwise. That means Sherry, you're up first. Sherry, who are you and what do you do for Star Citizen?
Hi, I'm Sherry. I am the archivist / associate writer at Star Citizen. Sorry, there's some voices in the background that it just happens when you're at home. Some people are in meetings at the same time that you're recording a cool video for everybody.
All right, Doc, I got to stop the video. Thank you for the 1,000 bits. Okay, thank you.
Doc.
But I
Thank
do the alien language stuff with our very talented, wonderful language contractor, Britton Watkins. Do space science, and do the Galactopedia, which you may have heard of once or twice.
Nice. And I want to compliment you on your Seven Samurai poster in the back.
Thanks, it's vintage.
All right, moving clockwise over. Dave, who are you and what do you do for Star Citizen?
I am Dave Haddock. I'm the narrative director and do a bit of everything. Probably too much. And also, Jared, just to correct you, I think Saturday would also be another end of the week. It's not just Friday. So
yeah, it's an option. It's an option.
Yeah, just saying. If you wanted to get technical.
See, I was going to compliment you on your Seven Samurai poster, but now I'm not going to.
That's fair.
It's not as nice as Sherry's. Moving down clockwise, Will, who are you and what do you do for Star Citizen?
Hi, I'm Will. I help Star Citizen. Sorry, which camera should I look at? This one?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I'm the lead writer here at Star Citizen. I do all sorts of narrative stuff. That's one of my favorite things about Star Citizen is narrative is everywhere. So yeah, we help write missions. We come up with world building stuff. We come up with cool aliens that we're going to talk about today. So yeah, it's a really great project to be a part of. Thanks, everyone.
And excellent work on your Seven Samurai poster.
Thanks. I'm thinking about upgrading to an 8 Samurai, but I'm waiting for it to come out.
And last, there's Adam. All right, so on the show this week, we are... No, Adam, who are you and what do you do for Star Citizen?
I mean, you hit it right on the head. I'm Adam, and I'm a writer, so I work with Dave and Will and Sherry on everything they just described. I support them and helping develop everything we're doing, the cultures and stuff like that. So, yeah, that's about it.
I feel your Seven Samurai poster is not as nice as everybody else's. I want to be honest.
It's okay. It's got a big tear in it, but it was still nice.
Right. So, what are we doing this week? This week is the kickoff of a round of festivities we're referring to as Alien Week. You can learn more about everything that's going into that on the robertspaceindustries.com website. What we are doing today is we are answering your questions related to the lore, the history, the background of the alien races that populate the Star Citizen universe. As usual, we take questions from multiple sources. If you're watching live in Twitch right now, you can submit your question with the word question in capital letters surrounded by brackets. You can also do so on Spectrum, our communication platform on robertspaceindustries.com. Our community management team will use that to help pull the questions out of all the other conversation. We also put a thread up earlier in the week to collect questions and allow them to be voted up by our backers, maybe for folks who couldn't be here or just to see which ones they wanted to see answered first. So we're going to start in with those as is wont to do. I do want to remind folks as you're submitting questions this week that we are here with the lore team, the story team. If your questions are, when is this ship coming out? Will we be able to play alien races in the game, which was another real popular one that came up, stuff like that. These are not the folks for that. Will we be able to have aliens as NPCs? There were lots of great questions. Unfortunately, this is not the group for those. So keep your questions story focused, and we should be good from here on out. The first question, the most top voted question, was one that you could probably anticipate.
Thanks, Heckler, for the follow.
It was simply when will we find out more about the Kr-Thak? The most elusive of Star Citizen's alien races.
Yes. At some point.
7 Heckler.
Eventually.
Yeah, I know it's hard sometimes because we have all this lore that's building and you want to know everything right away. But we mentioned this before, but it's really trying to strike that balance between having fun stuff and establishing the universe now and really saving stuff to be experienced for the game in general when it comes down. So we're always trying to balance it, whereas like this is a really fun story we could share right now, but wouldn't it be cooler if players got the surprise of it, got to experience it for the first time in game playing it. So we have our secret treasure trove where we keep things hidden and safe for it.
Yeah, and again, there's also like we're still kind of working our way through the Xi'An and the Banu and the Tavaran and the Vandal and stuff like that. So, I mean, to give some context for anyone who's unfamiliar with the Kr-Thak, they were actually originally a stretch goal, which was kind of funny. But yeah, so they were definitely like conceived of to be a little bit further down the line. But there was also an expectation at the time of whether we would hit it or not. Which was, so it kind of needed to have enough of a flavor when introducing it that you kind of got a sense of how they would fit into the universe, but also give ourselves an out in case we didn't hit it. So if they disappeared, the universe wasn't suddenly having to rewrite itself to factor in an alien race that suddenly was gone. But.
Since we've gained quite a few citizens since those early days, there are probably many folks who have maybe never even heard of the Kr-Thak. I know you gave us the stretch goal thing, but do you remember the blurb, the log line?
Yeah,
the primer for them.
The original thing was that basically they were they had not mortal enemies of the Xi'An, but they were basically located on the opposite side of the Xi'An Empire from the UEE. So, but they had been locked in a very, very long war with the Xi'An called the Spirit Wars, and the Xi'An were very, very cagey about telling us anything about them, and really wanted to make sure that we didn't kind of make contact with them. So that was the kind of original pitch set up for them.
All right. The question from the chat: will you just reveal already that the Kr-Thak are the cat people from Wing Commander? That might come from a B. Lesnick. I'm not sure.
I doubt it, because he wouldn't have called them cat people.
That's fair. That's fair. That's fair.
Heck.
Can I also just take the time to wish everyone a happy First Contact Day? So.
Happy First Contact Day.
Yeah.
Do you want to take a moment to explain what First Contact Day is?
It's the day where we had first contact.
Yeah.
With?
The Banu. The Banu were the first alien species that we came into contact with. It was a fun misunderstanding. You can read about it on the website, but it was, Banu out wandering around, and it was very tense, but it went pretty well considering when Banu had been one of our longest and closest allies through for the Empire's up and downs.
Well, I mean, to be more clear, it was he was running.
Was it Johnny or Jimmy or what was his name? Jerry.
And
then he got shot at by a human.
Jerry the Banu.
Yeah. I think if it had been any other species, it might have gone quite a bit different. But the Banu were with the punchers pretty well.
Yeah, right. The Banu are interstellar friends to all.
What can you tell us about? We know about the Vandal, the Banu, the Xi'An, the Tavaran, and we just got done talking about the Kr-Thak. What can you tell us about species on developing worlds?
Oh, we have a few of those. For those who don't know what a developing world is or a developing civilization, it's one that is inhabited by a species of that is self-aware. You might call it sentient in some works of science fiction. They use tools. They're like developing technology. Like they're moving forward onto a path that seems to indicate that one day they will join us in space. And the UEE has this law in place called the Fair Chance Act that prohibits interference from any of the developed civilizations. Basically, this was put in place to prevent another massacre of Garen II, which was a genocide of the developing species on the planet Garen II, conducted by a terraforming company that had ties to the Imperator Linton Messer the 11th. And it was the last inciting incident that led to the fall of the Messers and the end of the Messer era.
Everybody knows the odd number Messers are the bad ones.
Just like the Star Trek movies.
Hey, I will broach no ill speak of Star Trek 3. It's a good movie.
That's Search for Spock, right?
That's Search for Spock. That's Christopher Lloyd
Yeah, that's not
inventing the modern day Klingon.
Yeah, that one's
And they found him, so.
And they found him, so mission accomplished.
It's all good. Yeah, we have a couple of developing civilizations. We have you might have just read about the Osoyans because I published a Galactopedia article on them. They we can't get too much into their final design, but we do know that they communicate light through color displays like cuttlefish, which is fascinating and very hard for us to parse because we use our mouth parts to speak.
It's like cuttlefish and Daft Punk.
I will throw out a fun behind the scenes trivia thing. I had actually, when the Osoians first appeared in the Lost Generation story, and I had done a rough sketch that I showed to somebody on the team of what I was sort of thinking they looked like, and I was told to, quote, never ever show that to the animators, end quote. So.
They would cry.
Yes, many a bad idea
comes from me. Yes.
What are your thoughts on Vanduul NPCs in the persistent universe?
Watch out for them, probably.
Yeah.
Do not interact.
Yeah. Run.
Yeah, I guess it's sort of a two-pronged question of like, whether that's NPCs as far as like hostile forces that you could potentially come across, or NPCs as like, hey, there's a Vanduul shopkeeper named Jerry.
I was gonna say, that's exactly where I was going. Is there a Vanduul
Jerry
along with Banu Jerry?
I mean, as it stands now, the hope is that as you start kind of getting closer to the systems that are, near the Vanduul border, you're going to have to start dealing with them as a possible raiding force. But and we've alluded in the past that there are certain Banu that have managed to establish, trade relations with Vanduul, but and sort of hinted that, there's a possibility that maybe a human could try and pull it off, but as it stands now, like, no one's ever done it. So good luck. Make sure you wear your armor.
Yeah, and with the Vandals having clans and stuff, when we start getting to those border systems, I think, you'll start seeing kind of the differences start emerging between the different groups of Vandals you encounter, and that might take the form of, actually having recognizable. We don't want them to be a unified, just faceless force that attacks you, right, and like all that kind of stuff. So there will be plans to develop it, but as far as like dealing with them while the active war is going on, I think that's going to be a tricky proposition for anyone in the UAE to accomplish.
Well, and also going off what Will was saying earlier, like, there is that thing too of, if, say, for example, like, we publish a thing next week that's like, oh, hey, so-and-so found Jerry the Vanduul and he's super friendly and stuff like that. Like, that's not that satisfying from a player standpoint. Like, wanting to save the development of, where the future goes from here in the universe, like, until players can actually start to theoretically be able to affect that change is much more dynamic and interesting.
It's kind of what you talked about before. There is a not insignificant amount of lore already out there for Star Citizen, and that said, it's still, I understand the desire to still keep things closer to the chest. Discovery is such a key aspect of Star Citizen's intended end game. You don't want to sit there and spoil everything on live streams years earlier. All alien races are humanoids. How do you make them? All alien races they know about are humanoids. How do you make them different than humans?
Well, I think that's a specious term, first of all. I don't think we should be calling them humanoid.
Yeah, bipedal or die.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's always that thing of I don't know. For me, it's that sort of weird balance of like trying to. I mean, we are making a game, so there's that sort of the humans of Star Citizen, of the UEE and stuff like that. Like, how do the Xi'An react with them and stuff like that. So you want to build those sorts of conflicts, and humans believe this, so the Xi'An might believe that. If we want to make a little bit of kind of headbutting there, but yeah, I don't know. For me, there's also that aspect of like trying to come up with like unique ways that they could have developed, like writing out, actually we did a time capsule thing for the Xi'An, so writing out their history, like big events that happened throughout their history, and that actually really helped kind of establish that mindset of how they would approach something as a completely distinct culture.
Yeah, I think a lot of thing too for me is when we start talking about them, and even though their physiology may be, right now 2 arms and 2 legs and kind of a torso and kind of a general shape like that, I think a lot of the stuff that we can play with is in their senses and how they experience the world, and that gives them a really different perspective on stuff from us. Like, we really like the idea of the Banu are quite a hardy species, and they can survive temperatures well in excess of what we can on both sides of the range and different atmospheres and stuff like that. And so, like, them kind of being a little more maybe less cautious and blundering and going forward comes as a side effect of that being, hardier. And, the Xi'An have a very long life, and they have like duller senses. And so like this kind of more cautious approach all feeds into that. And so we try to think about how are these seeing the world and how is that different than humans as we go. So I think that helps me a lot as a writer, kind of create when I'm trying to think about, all right, what is the Xi'An way of looking at this? What is the Banu way of looking at this?
All right, makes sense. Jared, will you marry me? Depends on the dowry. Make your offers to Ulf. He's my agent. Do the Banu use ground vehicles?
I mean, they use anything that they think is useful, so I'm going to tentatively say probably.
Just to talk about this, like, I know there's a lot of questions about wanting to expand out the alien ship, thing, and by no means the alien ships that are available for sale right now represent the full range of what alien species fly and drive around in. We from the narrative team, ships are so important to Star Citizen that we have to be very careful when using them. Like, the safer route for us is when we're talking about stuff hundreds of years ago, we have a little more leeway to kind of just write for what we need. But when we're talking about present day stuff and what you encounter, that takes a lot of coordination between us and the ship design team. And so it's not something we do lightly. So wondering about like, oh, where's the science ships? How come you haven't ever mentioned the Xi'An having a tank and like all this kind of stuff? And that's kind of the reason behind there is that we really try to let them take the forward step with introducing a new ship into the universe, and then we follow up. So,
are there any alien musical instruments planned?
Ooh,
have you
good
developed?
question.
The question was actually musical instruments planned or food, and we know all about food, especially the Banu.
Talk about the food.
Banu
Oh, we have
delicacies.
so much food.
There goes the rest of the hour.
Yeah.
Eventually, there'll be a
food
Banu recipe book.
Yeah, food is a special interest of Will and me both. So we have spent many a work hour like developing the cuisine of the different alien species. Look forward to learning more next week.
And it's also one of these things that we have a little more liberty with as a writing team in the game, because unfortunately, we don't have a way for you to taste things when you click on it. But music and stuff you can actually hear, and someone is actually going to have to build that music the way we describe it. So like animate it. So we have plans and ideas for that, but that'll take coordination down the road with those separate teams. But food, we can say this tastes like, spicy beetles, and you just have to take our word for that. So, yeah.
Yeah, and even though we haven't specified a specific instrument, I know we have called out with the Xi'An that they love like a certain type of opera, which you could almost compare to like very minimalist kind of like modern classical music, where it's very drony and drawn out, tends to have long lifespans, and that takes them to a meditative state. So we can describe that experience, and it would be like a day-long opera rather than like a 4 or 5 hour opera. So it's we have ideas for where we would like to take that and some sound, but again, it's not something we would go out there and say it's got to be this specific instrument, at least at this point.
And we've talked a bit about the Tavaran having this kind of unified chanting system as kind of like a timekeeping and keeping everyone in lockstep kind of for their movements and stuff, and so like
Yeah,
bringing all their voices together.
Yeah, it was about kind of, again, because the Tavaran also kind of came from a planet where they were, besieged by a lot of predators. So the idea with their music was that it would be a lot of like, the drum circle becomes kind of the classic example, but this idea that it's about augmenting your numbers to make it sound like you're a really big, fearsome thing. So it was that sort of coordinated, like I said, kind of rhythmic type thing to kind of amplify your size or boast about kind of the size of, like, you don't want to come over here, there's a big thing here that will mess you up.
I like to imagine that the Tavaran can all harmonize with anyone, like John Denver could.
Yeah.
So I
And
guess,
the Banu-
spoiler alert, they are John Denver.
And the Banu didn't really have much of a music culture before they encountered the humans, and so like they've taken to human music strongly, as it's a well-known fact that they enjoy karaoke, and also because of their less sensitive hearing, they really like music cranked to 11, and so it can be dangerous to go to a Banu concert.
That's one more. This one seems pretty broad. Tell us about Tavaran who serve in the UEN. Are there Tavaran that serve in the Navy?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the current senators, he's the first Tavaran senator elected, was formerly in the Navy and had kind of had joined the Navy to essentially earn his citizenship, and then obviously kind of like integrate. And a lot of Tavaran like to join the Navy or stuff like that as a way to better integrate into the society, and they see it as a ladder to maybe kind of to get to better positions and stuff like that. One of the current things in the current election cycle we're dealing with is some of the candidates and their preference to wanting to encourage more Tavaran to join the armed forces and stuff like that as a way to kind of like make for give them more opportunities and kind of a more diverse fighting force for the UEE. So there's definitely a lot out there, but I'm sure there's still plenty of Tavaran that have no interest in joining or just don't see the use in it. So I think it's more of a personal choice.
Yeah, there's a sort of, there's an interesting split kind of going on within the Tavaran, where there's a certain percentage of them are believing that they, are trying to kind of rediscover their old ways, and that I can't remember, I think they went to Branagh or Bremen.
Yes,
Branagh. And so they've kind of formed this, or trying to kind of go and isolate themselves and kind of start to resurrect kind of the old Tavaran, Rajora and stuff. And then there's another group that's sort of Suj Kasi, who's the Tavaran senator, is sort of spearheading of like, we need to, play our part. We're part of this empire. Let's act like it, type thing, and really trying to inspire the Tavaran to really kind of take up their mantle as members of the UEE and really do their part. And then there's the third who kind of ignore both and are just sort of like still somewhat disaffected and don't want to contribute at all.
Yeah, I think the Tavaran serving in the Navy was a big step forward for them in terms of finding their place within the empire, because there was a lot of distrust at the beginning. We were at war with them, they were living among us, they were kind of segregated, and so that opportunity, when it occurred, when they made the invitation to allow Tavaran to serve, was kind of the first normalizing step for a lot of ways of humanity kind of getting the used to idea that maybe we can trust these people. So it's kind of interesting in the historical significance of it, and it still goes on today. I think Tavaran have a reputation for being fierce warriors. So
and shedding. No, I made that one up. This person has clearly done their homework. So I'm not gonna alter this one. I'm gonna read it just as it is. Humanity made first contact with the Banu in Davian, which is at least 5 jumps from Banu territory according to the star map. The Banu in question was not an explorer but a fugitive, which implies that he knew of those systems already, which in turn implies that other Banu knew about them. In fact, we know they must have, because of Treese, which lies clear across the star map from known Banu space, at least 8 jumps by my count, and to make the trip in 8 jumps from Geddon would mean going through Terra. In any case, Treese is a long way from Banu space, and what's between the two is mostly UEE space, or what's become UEE space. So the question is, if the Banu knew about all these uninhabited systems for so long, why didn't they colonize any of them?
I'm going to answer this. Any Banu who knows the answer is dead, so we'll never know. The end.
For folks who might not know what the context of that answer is, Sherry, why does knowledge die with the Banu?
So Banu don't really preserve historical records that outline like big events that happen. It's not out of any kind of like malice for past events. It's just because it's not useful for them to remember stuff like that. You know, like their culture is centered around the present moment, like making things that have use, like tools and instructional guides. So
they preserve knowledge.
They preserve knowledge. They don't preserve history. So them recording a reason like why didn't the Banu terraform this random system? No Banu would care enough to write that down.
And it's kind of like, you know, the humans existing in the UE now, like they've kind of noticed this discrepancy of wonder themselves and try to figure it out. And it's one thing that it's hard to get travel information from the Banu the way that we've kind of talked about them setting up their navigational is that it's very proprietary and controlled. And so like we didn't instantly get access to all the Banu star maps when we became friends with them. It's been a long overtime trading process of finally gaining access. Like you have to purchase rights to get their star map data. And a lot of them are very carefully held because people want to control trade routes. They don't want the humans coming in and, you know, doing these things. And so it's not like we can just take a Banu ship and download the information because of the way that they build their drives. It's all hard coded into it and you can't remove it out. And so it's kind of an interesting thing where they're very protective of that information.
Sort of goes back to the question from earlier about how you differentiate the alien races when they're when on a surface level they're all bipedal. You know, you find ways of differentiating through their culture and through their habits and stuff like that. So the Banu don't care about history.
It is a mystery.
Let's see. How do you work to adapt or limit the lore you write into something that will become possible to actually create in the game?
We do our best.
Do you all succeed?
Conversations.
Yeah, conversations. I was going to say good communication.
Yeah.
Where we brainstorm, you know.
We brainstorm a lot. We also, like, if it seems like stuff's going to have like gameplay implications, we will try to either get really cryptic in the stuff that we're talking about that's actually directly referencing gameplay, or and as well as just reach out to the design team, you know, directors and stuff like that, and just say like, hey, you know, is this roughly accurate? Is this completely flying in the face of everything that we're heading towards? Like we would try to get buy-in basically from the other team members before writing anything. Because the last thing we want to do is say like, you know, throw out something arbitrarily that has massive gameplay implications and then have to walk it back because people read our stuff pretty closely.
Yes. Oh, that last question evidenced enough. A follow-up to the Banu question from the chat: if Banu don't savor history, they don't write down history or anything. Can there be Banu outlaws? Can you have a Banu with a criminal record?
Yes, because it's still based off of like if I'm a Banu and I steal from Banu Will remembers that I stole from him, and so there's.
I would hire a security company to collect, track down Dave, and that contract, as long as it's in existence, would mark Dave as a wanted person. but how far that knowledge spreads, maybe it's kind of a personal, immediate kind of transgression.
Yeah, it feels like the Banu, there's less of that next step with the Banu, as in that doesn't just become a general, you are now an outlaw for everyone. It's a very personal thing at that moment, and if Will disappears or dies, that Dave may no longer be considered an outlaw because no one really cares. It's not useful to anybody else to go track him down because that whatever happened there has no significance.
His contract with Will's contract with his mercs that he hired to kill me would be annulled because Will's dead. So it's sort of as we've talked about in the past with sort of the kind of inherent comedy around the humans and Banu having to constantly renegotiate their trade agreement. Because
Good job. You passed. Let's talk about the Xi'An. How did the Xi'An develop? This person read that they weren't at the top of the food chain. Is the race that is the top of their food chain still around? That's really two questions. How did the Xi'An develop, and then is the whatever the race that was at the top, the species that was at the top?
So we got what, 30,000 years of history? So we
we got a very long time. So like I personally have always imagined that the Xi'An were not self-aware. Well, they were prey animals. Like they maybe in their like early days when they were starting to develop tools, the predator animals that used to hunt them down and kill them all the time were around, and so that's part of the reason why they developed tools and banded together in groups. Like this active predation helps them develop as an actual civilization. And so I also like to imagine that once they banded together and had tools to get rid of their predator species, they just got rid of them. Like I don't believe that at that time the predator species were self-aware like the Xi'An were.
There's something interesting.
Right.
Yeah, I would also think the long lifespan of a Xi'An would probably benefit them because there's so much knowledge that they can acquire and then kind of grow over the few hundred years they're living. So yeah, I could see them very quickly assessing and understanding the apex predators around them and how to either avoid them or overcome them.
I could see them having them like still around as like a zoo type thing of showing like how far we came. Like we're not afraid of this elephant tiger bat anymore. That's
they
not
live in
canon.
the Avatar universe.
Yeah, like they actually have them on the zoo planet.
The zoo,
keep them in the preserve.
Yeah, I mean we have the Santokyai. That's a super scary creature that used to drop down from the trees and kill the heck out of Xi'An. So I got still around.
Yeah, and they named a ship after him.
Yeah. Like to see like, haha, now we control the Santokyai. Suck it. Don't know why.
I yield my time.
I yield my time.
Yeah, maybe that would be like the real baller like Xi'An move is to have, one of those on your compound as a pet. Kind of fancy collar, yeah.
The sort of
like
Xi'an
Pablo
Scarface.
Escobar having hippos and tigers and
Let's
Tiger Emperor.
Let's move along.
Oh, okay.
How did humans learn to communicate with the Banu they met during first contact?
It was a really long process. It was, I think it was Neil Sikolovich was the general in charge, but it was several months of them working with the Banu. Wait, sorry, Banu or Xi'an?
Which was the one for first contact? Banu, right?
Banu.
Yeah.
Banu.
Okay. Yeah, but it was a very long, weird, arduous process. But yeah.
Many xenolinguists gave up their lives to deliver this information.
Yeah.
Is there a character in our lore named after Britain?
Not yet. I do
in
want
my
to cast him as like the if we have like a in-lore language tutor, sort of like a Rosetta Stone instructor would be my goal.
The Britain Stone?
Yeah, basically. Unless he has a preference of what he would like to appear as, but that would be my.
For those who maybe don't know and just heard a name come out of nowhere and you're like, woo, Britton Watkins is our official xenolinguist for Star Citizen. And
I recommend watching his How to Speak Xi'An videos that he
Yes.
did for us.
He also actually has a documentary too on constructed language.
It's awesome.
Speaking of language, some games allow for player characters to slowly learn alien languages, to find ruins faster and understand artifacts for better rewards, ship items, etc. With the growing library of languages for the Vandal, the Xi'An, and the Banu, what are your plans for integrating these languages into the game?
I mean, as outside of like just sort of pure environmental stuff. I mean, we started to kind of we have started integrating them in. Like, I believe we have Banu stuff on some of the food vendor carts and stuff like that.
We have Banu and Xi'An signage and
Area 18 has a bunch.
Yes, I was like, oh God, are they up yet?
But yeah, I mean, again, I think it's the way we had always been kind of talking about it. Again, like we'll see, as they become more online. I believe the early conversations was always like, if you take the time to learn this stuff, that it will, open up some possibilities and kind of facilitate some kind of cool stuff, and you might get to kind of navigate some social minefields that other people might fall into because they're not familiar with the language. But it was also trying to balance it, because we don't want to be punishing to people who don't have time to learn an alien language. Like, that seems kind of unfair to me, because I'm terrible. I barely speak English, and so it's like, making it fun for the people and rewarding them for learning Xi'An, which is impressive, but not being too crushing to people who haven't, or make the game unplayable to people who haven't.
I could see a mission that doesn't require you to have to read Banu to complete it, but a secondary objective, like an optional objective that would benefit you more if you could.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
Or like you can read the signs on the ruins and it'll take you down a different path or something like that. That still leads to the same place, but maybe you get quicker or something. I don't know.
Yeah, we also have to figure out how kind of our 30th century tech ties into this, because we're talking about how your mobiGlas kind of AR ties into the world around you and what information you're going to be getting for identifying stuff, and whether, like, our whole idea is that if we do end up having automatic translation happening through your mobiGlas, that it's rough. Like, it is the bare bones, like
70% accurate type thing.
Trying to do a translation online in like 1999 kind of level of translation.
Maybe it just translates the words in the order that they're written, but since it doesn't translate the grammar, it's like
that you're missing out. You're missing out on the nuance, which might give you a leg up.
We haven't talked with the design team yet about the idea that there would be a skill that you could acquire where it's like, I know Banu now, and it like translates it differently or something like that. That's kind of I don't know where we would fall on that. So
I want to make sure that folks heard the part we have not talked to design about that. just before.
I mean, we could just be flashing
the various summaries that come.
This is all speculation. These are all cool ideas.
You don't have like a pop-up, Jared? You could just hit like a Chiron that just sort of like flashes of like have not talked to design, that just kind of.
We are not describing actual gameplay.
There's so many things I'd like to say right now. Sometimes my life is not my own. Let's see. Is there anything you can tell us about our beloved Jerry? Hey, a question about Jerry, the Banu involved in First Contact. Go on. We have some deep-seated backstory for Jerry, don't we?
Deep love for Jerry. No, actually, we don't. I mean, just outside of the fact that he was on the run from some Banu. That's why he came across Vernon Tar. But I don't think we've ever really delved too deep into him.
It's definitely a good short story candidate, maybe for something for us fun to do in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, as we've been further developing the Banu species in general, I think it's helped kind of bring a few more specifics. So now that we've kind of honed that in a little bit, it might be a good time to revisit and provide a little more color to his journey and a little more context.
You should be like a con artist trying to sell fake alien relics for alien species that doesn't exist.
Yeah, it sort of seems like that would probably not be too far from the truth. That he would be doing something. Yeah, he was selling fake, ship reg tags or something like that, or timeshares in Boca.
Timeshare and Pyro. or Null, something like that. Cathcart Cuisinarts. We heard that the Banu trade with even the Van Duel. How did that come about? Does anybody remember?
Great question.
It's one of those proprietary information things where they don't want us to necessarily also have trade with the Van Duel. Where if it's a money revenue stream that they have complete control over now, so they're not exactly breaking it down. They're also not exactly advertising it. It's more just kind of like inferred from the fact that, you know, maybe you'll see a Banu selling Vandal made items and you're like, how did you get those? And he's like, I got them.
They gave them to me for money.
You got them from Jerry.
So we do know from context that they are perceivably have some kind of connection with them, but it's unclear to what extent or how they did it.
Is there anything you can share about the native species of the Hades system?
They're dead.
They are dead.
Do you want to give some back context to what this person's referring to?
They died.
There's the Hadesians we're talking about now, about Hades.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, the Hades system is basically
They are dead, evidently.
kind of a totally wrecked system. There's a planet that's been cracked in half. It's basically the only thing that humanity sort of learned about it. It's like somebody used to live here a while ago, and they messed each other up pretty bad to the point where they basically presumably wiped themselves out.
We've all had that roommate.
Yeah.
Some of us still
ragers.
do.
Are you talking about Toast?
Yo.
Wow. He's got a sword, Jared.
And he watches the show. Hi, Toast. We'll just move on. Do the Tavarans speak their own language, or do they now speak human? Or common languages? Common languages.
UE standard.
Well, it depends on where you are in the universe. There are some Tavaran enclaves outside of the UEE that would certainly still preserve the language, but most of the Tavaran that were absorbed in the UEE, when they got rid of their culture, they most likely threw away their language too. They're just like, this is shit. This didn't serve us well. None of this protected us when it counts. So why should we still bother to use it?
I mean, again, I don't know. I mean, I think it might be one of those things that once we get the language kind of online, we kind of figure it out. Because at the same time, like definitely that they were like, you know, screw Rajora, it was useless, it was stuff. But it still feels like there'd be still patches of like the language is still kind of survived because that was just their way of communication.
It's out there.
Yeah, definitely in Branagh. Yeah.
Definitely in Branagh, like probably the more like you said, the ones who were trying to resurrect kind of the old Tavaran ways would probably adhere more to it. But
I think there's definitely been renewed interest in recent time. Sorry, Adam, go for it.
Oh yeah, no, I was just it's been like 300 plus years since the end of the Second Tavaran War and the species officially being integrated into the UEE. So that's in that amount of time, you can see the language has probably dropped off a lot, but it's still not so old that it's not like Latin where it's completely lost. There are still probably people that have been speaking it and keeping it alive. And yeah, I believe there is a bit of a resurgence right now.
I mean,
at least in the game world.
One thing that would be really fun, you know, I mean, once we start kind of tackling the language itself, would be to have the kind of similar what you said with Latin, like that it's patchwork integrated into sort of human common, that you might get words that carry over. They might still speak kind of a dialect of it that's a bit more kind of integrated to kind of, so the language of the Tavaran is more an assimilated UEE standard old Tavaran, and then you have the purists who are back to Rajora speaking pure Tavaran, which is like the broken one, but a little bit more kind of refrained. But just to give it that sort of sense of like, even their language is sort of assimilating into English or the UE standard based on
with the big rejection in that whole period of time, I think there's a large population of the Tavaran who only speak UE standard. Like That's it. That's their language. And now you start getting people maybe who grew up only speaking standard who are like, I would like to connect more with my past. I'm going to take a class to try to learn how to speak Tavarn again. And to Adam's point, it's real interesting because this isn't like a lost language like we've encountered where we don't understand ancient Greek, because we have recordings, like we encountered them in a digital age. So there's like well documentation on this language. You know,
and even though they did purge their culture after the Second Tavarn War and tried to clear a lot of that out, there still be a digital record, and the Kabul system was recently discovered, which a bunch of ancient Tavarn artifacts there. So that's always a well we can go to and say, like the language or things that might have been lost have been refound here.
Yeah, and from a linguistics perspective, 600 years is a very long time. Like, we don't speak the same language. Like, we speak English right now, us here, but English 600 years ago did not sound like this. Yeah. So, like, the Tevarin that exists now, even if there was an unbroken chain from the Tevarin on Khalith to the Tevarin on Brana, they're not going to speak the exact same language just because of how language changes.
Yeah, you try to read the Canterbury Tales right now. It's like Wanda Dapriu, the shore, Sota. The dropped marched best to Rota and bad every vein in swish the kur of which Vertun. Anyway, come back.
And I've seen the conversation on Spectrum about people being like, well, in 29, 50, humans would not be sounding anything like we like. Right. Our writing is pretty present. We have chosen not to do like some authors do that really cool thing where they create, almost an entirely new language to show how different it's come over the hundreds of years, and that's probably that might be more accurate. But but we definitely have gone for more of a stylized version of the future. So because I know
similar to like the stylistic choice of like the no AI thing. Like, it was sort of a choice to make it not that sort of very unusual sounding English language, to keep it conversational, so it still sounds grounded and real to us as players, rather than trying to accurately depict or predict what English will evolve to, or various languages will evolve to in 900 years, which I do not have the brain capacity for.
Yeah, like when you're watching a movie and everyone's Russian and you're like, why are they speaking with British accents? It's one of those suspension of disbeliefs in order to be able to tell the story. Right. So
I kind of following up on that.
Beliefs in order to be able.
The question is do you plan to flesh out multiple religions for each race similar to as humans? I want to tweak that a bit. How do you not go down the rabbit hole? Like, how do you know how far you're supposed to go with this stuff before you're like, all right, this isn't the core central thing of the entire game here. It's, come back. I've got a lot of other things to do. How do you manage not just falling down the rabbit hole in any of these fun things?
Who says we ever left the rabbit hole?
Wow. It's a lot of it comes from need. Like, maybe we start with the base supposition of like they have a lot of religions. Like with the Banu, we said they're going to have a lot of different belief systems that they try to incorporate in, and that's enough for us to start going on. And then we start filling that in as we need it. So talking about like the god of luck is a very important one, and so we learned a little bit more about how that works. Or we decide that they're a little more monotheistic and like. Like the Tavarn had this major belief that was instilled as part of their culture, and that's kind of surmounted, like it was part of their identity, and so that focused it in. So I think it's usually like that. Like we can say, like even for the human stuff, like there's a bunch of sports. Like humans play a bunch of different sports, but we talked about Sadaball. Like, it's just we just have to pick and choose our battles, and a lot of times it's that need. I'm writing this thing right now, and I need more detail about this, so I'm going to dive into it, because otherwise you'll just go crazy. You can just sit forever thinking of bands for hundreds of years, and like
and I think it's also one of those things. I always kind of try to equate a lot of this to drawing a picture where you draw in the sort of like block shapes to block out your composition and your sizes and your framing and stuff like that, and then you fill in the details as you go, and you refine down
as you need it,
as opposed to like starting really detailed and trying to do a picture, it'll take you forever. It's like you kind of get what you need to get you through and sell what you're trying to sell, as far as a flavor or a location or something like that. And, and then just kind of move forward, because again, there's so much stuff to cover that, like, hopefully as we are moving down, we're still filling in all these little, getting specific on stuff, because we go, oh, we need a new, Tavaran. I don't want, I have this Banu, and I don't want him to worship Terranin, so I want him to do a new god. So I got to come up with a new god. I don't know what the hell that was, but that's it. So now we have a second one that we can swap in there and stuff. So it's, it's just about kind of trying to keep moving forward.
I think this is a really interesting difference between the kind of nonlinear storytelling we do and a more traditional linear storytelling, where if you know exactly where you're walking and where you go, you can fill in a lot of detail on that path so that your character goes to this one bar and has this one drink, and you can describe the full history of that. But with us covering anyone can do so many different things, it becomes a lot harder to have that kind of controlled and level of detail. So like, Dave's analogy was great for that kind of high level, rough sketch, and then filling it in the details as we go.
Are those two cans on your shirt?
Yes.
Okay.
1 and 2.
Let me see what else really got. Do I really have the Canterbury Tales memorized in the Old English? Yes. And because I make bad bets. C, not shaving until 3.0 comes out. When I commit, people. How developed are the developing species, such as the Asoans? So we talked about them a little earlier. Will we have cities? Will they have cities and forms of transportation, or how developed is developing?
I mean, again, originally the idea was that it was anything kind of below spacefaring. That the idea that the Fair Chance Act was, everyone is going to, all the cultures are going to leave this species alone until they basically take off and get into space, and then they'll be basically met by, some Vandal, a kid. And then they can be sort of integrated into the galaxy as a spacefaring species. But now that we're sort of able to do full planetary exploration, which again, back in 2012 was a dream, I think we're probably going to shave it down. I don't know. It's an interesting question. It feels like it's easier to make them not as developed technologically, so it's easier to just make a world, and then it's just a type of creature that's sort of running around on the surface of the world, rather than like having to develop architecture or vehicles or stuff like that. It's like they were in the 1800s or equivalent of our 1800s type thing. So I don't know. It's going to be an interesting question.
The Fair Chance Act overall is very interesting to me, because I don't think not everyone agrees with it. Like, there's some people who think it's mean not to lift up a developing species. If we have like medicine and they're suffering from a disease, is it really right that we don't help them? So like, that's one of the science fiction kind of stories that I'm really fascinated by, and I hope we get a chance to explore that more as we go.
Yeah, there's there are a few developing species in the Genesis system. There's a group of cephalopod-like species who are just beginning to explore the surface of their world, and they have engaged in warfare with a land-dwelling species who doesn't like them. And the people who are observing are like, ethically, should we interfere in this? Because there's a good chance that one could wipe the other out. And does that violate the tenets of the Fair Chance Act on its own? Because it's a very murky issue. Lots of interesting perspectives.
You're in the UE Senate. Bill comes up to eradicate the Fair Chance Act. Do you vote to keep it or get rid of it?
I would keep it.
Dave?
I'd keep it.
Will?
Man, I would modify it. Basically, I would acknowledge that these are claimed planets that we don't have a right to, but I would probably push for opening contact with these species.
All right, but the bill up for vote is just to abolish it, not to amend it. Do you keep it or do you abolish it? Is abolishing it the next step to changing it? Like
No, I would
abolishing-
keep it until I can introduce a new law.
Okay. Adam?
Thanks for the follow, Lord UW.
I would keep it.
All right.
Personally, yeah. But I would point out the Fair Chance Act, doesn't just apply to developing species. It can also affect like mining rights to certain areas and stuff like that. So if a species is developing, they don't want people up in the asteroid belt or going down to the planet to pull out these valuable resources and potentially mess with any of the species there. So there's even one candidate in the current final five of the Imperator election, Paul LaSalle, who one of his core campaign promises is to basically revisit the Fair Chance Act as a way to open it up for miners to be able to maybe use new technologies or access certain areas of the empire that were previously off limits. So there is a pro-business stance too. It's like maybe it needs to be refined because we can do this in a better way that can benefit both humanity, and the UEE and the economy without necessarily affecting the development of these species. So there's lots of different areas that it does split up into.
Were the Xi'An actually willing adversaries in the Cold War, or was it just the Messers using a conveniently scary neighbor as a means of controlling the Empire? Someone's done the reading.
I'd say a little of both.
Yeah, I mean, what kicked it all off was basically some human terraformers came charging into a system and just started terraforming a planet without checking to see if it was uninhabited. So that doesn't send a great message. So there was definitely some antagonism from the Xi'An.
On the flip side, what's the most petty or silly situation where the Xi'An would use anti-grav technology to solve a problem?
That's a great question.
Do we need to set up the Xi'An's admiration for anti-grav, or is that self-explanatory at this point?
No, I mean they're highly developed. They have really good anti-grav tech. A lot of the human knowledge of anti-gravity comes from our contact with the Xi'An and their technology.
I almost want to say that in their development timeline, like they came up with that before they came up with space travel.
Yes,
I believe so. Yeah,
they're real good at it.
So what would be the most petty or silly situation they'd use anti-gravity for?
Let's see.
My idea is that so they use anti-grav at the dinner table, so to like levitate tables and levitate chairs. So if Xi'An comes to join the big family meal and she finds that there's no chair, she'd just like whip out an anti-grav device and kind of hover there.
like those extending seats that people bring that just sit back. Okay.
We have talked about like their kind of like ancestral clothing, these really like ornate outfits. So it'd be funny to me if something got like a really heavy outfit that has a bunch of intricate things sewn into it that they use a little helper device when they're walking around so they don't get weighed down.
All right. We are just about out of time. So a couple quick ones here. With the 2950 elections coming around, what are the candidates' feelings towards the way Tavaran within the Empire have been treated?
That's your quick last question? Jeez. Oh, man.
All right, you want to do it? I'll do it.
No, we can do it. I just don't know.
No. You're gonna get a bad one next because of that.
Adam, go. You're the most fluent.
It varies. Most of them would like to kind of like better integrate them into or at least are going to put forward the idea that they want to be better integrated into the Empire, because Koji has become a senator, because there does seem to be a rise of people of Tavaran kind of rediscovering the culture. So they're trying to appeal to that voter base. A
lot of the more extremist views on Tavaran and human alien species didn't make it into the final five, though there's people out there that like to see it. I think the closest maybe like Paul LaSalle, who thinks they deserve equality but not special treatment, is kind of his stance on it.
Yeah, both Leilani Addison and Mira Nyo have called out specifically that they would probably create programs that would aim to better integrate the Tavaran into the Empire. Mira Nyo, I think, would even want to set like a certain percentage of each UE office would had to have, let's say, 10% Tavaran working in it as a way to integrate their ideas and their influence into the UE. So there are some people that, if anything, are going to be more proactive about trying to get them to participate. There's no bad will in these final 5 candidates. If anything, they just would raise their hands and be like, they can lift themselves up by their own bootstraps, and they have the same opportunity as anybody else if they want to try to achieve that.
All right, the
Not
only
gonna
bad
get my
will is
vote.
here.
Yeah.
Oh.
This last question is exclusively for Will. Please do your best Banu impersonation.
Oh, hello. Yeah, that was it.
It's about what I've come to expect.
That worked for me. Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us here on Star Citizen Live Alien Week Roundtable. I hope you enjoyed our conversation about the lore, the history, the background of some of Star Citizen's alien races set to populate the Precision Universe. As we have been doing the last couple of weeks, we are going to send the raid on over to another Star Citizen streamer. I'm being told it's Uber Nerd. So we are going to raid Uber Nerd today. So you should see that prompt coming up if you're watching live. You can opt in for that. Tell him Molly says hi. And for Star Citizen Live, I'm Jared. Let's see if I can get directions. That's Sherry. That's Dave. That was Will. That's Adam. And we'll see you next week, everybody. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks so
Bye.
much.
Okay, we took it in an SCL, 1 hour long SCL gang. Fastcart, let me ask you if there was one thing out of the show that stuck with you in relation to this whole alien thing. Was there something that stuck out for you?
I want to do my best Kr-Thak impersonation. Jive turkey? No. I took down a note. Let me see. With the much lore they had, they are deep in the rabbit hole. They said that they try to avoid the rabbit hole. Have you seen how much lore they wrote?
Yeah.
They've written already.
Yeah.
I think they're deep in the rabbit hole.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Kimmy, anything for you stuck out in particular?
2 components. I'll make it quick. Here
One.
fast card. 2 main components that stuck out, but gameplay wise, expect to find creatures and life forms, just life period. Expect the worlds to be fully fleshed out with life. Also, in regards to civilization and aliens itself, whether they're there or not, expect to interact with items that are not in our where you can buy these items. You're gonna find rare items that's not for sale in the game.
Mm-hmm.
So not planet destroying weapons, but some very unique alien type based technology that could bear you a wealth as far as whether you want to keep it or not or sell it. And the other component, the game development side, that's the other component, is the fact that, alluding to what Fastcart said, the lore team has a lot of work to do in regards to really categorizing these sentient and non-sentient creatures and what they are, a story behind them. But like you said, Fastcart, not going so far into the rabbit hole about where they are as far as their development, where they're from. Just keep it simple in that aspect, because now the devs are now getting together these creatures that we have to they have to actually put into the game. And so the lore team has got to work with them hand in hand to flesh out the systems and the aliens along with all that development together. So they're going to be busy.
I want to change my answer. I'll keep it quick though.
Sure.
How
You changed?
the Fair Chance Act affect mining rights? That was an important one.
Yeah.
Does not apply to piracy.
Well, it's interesting. I'm kind of want to catapult off what both of you guys said, because we kind of opened the show up talking about what happens when we go somewhere that's not UEE and we decide to impact that area in some form, whether it's setting up residences, whether it's mining. If there are, because one of the examples they gave was one particular race where these miners went in and started mining. They didn't know that that planet or that moon, whatever, was occupied, and it created tension. I'm curious to know whether or not that's going to be something that we'll have to worry about in game. You go somewhere, you think you've scanned it, you don't think there's any life there. You start mining, and all of a sudden the big crab comes out of the ground and says, "What are you doing on my planet?" I'm just kind of curious if that's going to be a scenario. I'm really curious.
And then you say, "Ooh, lunch."
Oh, okay.
Thanks for dropping in for lunch.
Yeah. It was interesting too to see how they talked about the Fair Chance Act. That some of them felt that it should stay in place. Some of us would call it from Star Trek the Prime Directive kind of thing. And they talked about that in the beginning. They kind of said as long as they weren't spacefaring, if they were below spacefaring, then they considered them evolving. But they said now that the universe has gotten bigger and things have grown, they may have to go back now and start breaking that down into maybe some different categories because it's too broad now. Because you have everything from the amoeba all the way to the race that's possibly about ready to go into space. And I'm sure they want to have some better categories. Because again, I'm kind of curious as to what is that, what will be that crossing we talked about earlier. When is someone moved from creature to entity? I'm curious as to where we will see that. And not trying to be funny, but our human race is very much into, if it don't look like us, shoot it. I mean, that's kind of how we are.
Or if they don't speak English.
Yeah, right. If they don't speak, or whatever it is, right?
They don't speak English,
yeah, as long as if they're not like us, then they're maybe less than us for some people. So I'm really curious when we go in, and the old saying, "Don't run up on the wrong one." You know what I'm saying? I mean, you might run up on the wrong one that you think ain't all that great. For those of you who watched The Mandalorian Friday, you'll know what I'm talking about. Because the humans almost got wiped out. So,
No spoilers.
Oh, no, I'm just saying the humans almost got wiped out, depending on who you run up against. So I'm just saying, I really have to wonder when we go into these different worlds, what CIG will have in store for us. I mean, it's nice that we know about the Xi'An and the Kr-Thak and the Vandul. But I guarantee you there's going to be something else out there. Do you guys remember, and guys, any of you guys into Star Trek, you'll remember this. Do you remember when they ran into, was it Species 475, whatever the heck those were in Voyager?
457.
Remember that? Yeah, remember that? Now, everybody thought the Borg was the baddest dudes in town. And then they ran into some alien race that was able to transphase between galaxies or what. I mean, these jokers were bad. We don't know what these folks in Star Citizen, what the lore team, and they've said it. They said, we've got some stuff we kept in our secret treasure chest that we aren't letting out. And as much as we want to know some of this stuff, I mean, I'm looking forward to the fact that there's going to be some things out there that, we're going to run into. And what do you do when you've got no lexicon, when the Galactopedia don't help you? What do you do when you run into it,
Yes. And you said, Griff, out there. But I want to segue off of that and say in there as well.
Yeah.
Meaning the oceans.
Brother. I knew exactly
they're gonna open up the oceans, everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Don't sleep on that. They're going to open up oceans. So out there and in there or down there.
No, that's a good
And
one.
like space, no one can hear you scream.
By the way, I think the Borg went downhill when we met, what's his name, Hugh?
Hugh?
Remember him?
Yeah, I remember Hugh.
Hugh. Yeah. So ever since then, when they humanized the Borg, that's when they became less of a threat. They had to invent a new one, and that's when the 457 came in.
It became too popular.
Yeah. No, that's an interesting point. So yeah, we've taken in a lot of stuff. Admiral says he has a question. What was his question? Are you talking about the dinosaurs Voyager ran into, or the ones that were kicking the Borg's butt? Yes, that's who we're talking about, Admiral. Yeah, the one where the Borg were even having issues with them. That's the ones that I'm thinking about.
Nice.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Absolutely.
How many of us are expecting to see apex predators in the floating spaceship graveyards out there in space? Are we all on the same page to expect that?
I am. I mean, again, there's so much, space is such a big place, Kimmy, right? and God only knows what we're going to find. I think that's one of the arrogant sides of us. When we go somewhere, we kind of think we know it all, but we haven't run into. I mean, there's so many type of things they could create, right? I mean, just using fiction, this past fiction, everything else we heard. I mean, everything from telepathic beings, telekinesis, all types of stuff that they could introduce into the game that we are not prepared to deal with,
right?
Or approach.
Because look at our reality with space travel. There are, we have the concept in our minds. Nothing can survive without a suit. Now, when we talk about Star Citizen, they've already debunked that possibility or that incapability because the Vandal can exist without a suit.
Space whales. Yep, that's right.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I just want to say one thing. If I can meet Deanna Troy in space, sign me up.
Oh, from the new generation?
You know what, Kimmy, please put him in an airlock. Please put him in an airlock.
You alien horn dog.
Just put him in an airlock.
You are the Captain Kirk of Star Citizen Fast Cart.
Oh my God.
Your middle name is Kirk. Fast Kirk Cart.
Oh my God.
He likes some green, blue, yellow, purple.
You guys, please forgive Fast Cart, guys. He doesn't know better.
He is Kirking out tonight. You and Kirk, you should not hang out. There will be no women left in the verse between you two.
God. All right. Well,
moving on.
Yes.
Oh my God.
We hope that you enjoyed our conversation on aliens this week, folks. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us and all the great comments that you guys have thrown in. For the subscriptions, for the follows, for the bits. You guys are always really supportive of us.
You guys are a pleasure,
appreciate it. Yeah, we appreciate it. Next week, there's going to be an interesting show. Other than, we got, you guys know we already do our Friday Night Live on Friday. Kimmy and Fast Cart were on this past week, and they had some good questions with Tessa D and Captain Kusanagi. Hey, Captain, we know you're out there.
Admiral.
Admiral. Why am I saying Captain? Lord, Admiral Kusanagi. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to lower your rank, Admiral. My apologies.
Busting your rank. What did you do?
Please forgive me. I didn't mean to lower your rank. JJ, what's going on? But next week we're going to be doing a show on support ships. And this is something that we haven't heard a lot of people talk about in Star Citizen. All those ships that we look at for support, things like the Vulture, the Vulcan, the Argo ships, things like that, the SRV. We're going to be kind of covering those next week and talking about what is their real place in Star Citizen, because some of us have bought them. A lot of us have bought them as tokens. But will they serve a purpose later? Will you regret that you got rid of that SRV? So Fast Cart, I saw that, Kimmy. Will some of you regret that you got rid of that Argo personnel, or whether you got rid of your SRV? Nah, you say nah. Okay, well, we'll see. I think there's going to be some good conversations around those ships next week. So anyway, Kimmy, let everybody know where they can find you, please.
Wow. Thanks, Griff. Guys, gals in chat, you're going to find me on Twitch. I'm streaming Star Citizen basically exclusively, right? Whether it's doing joystick setups, question Q&A on that, just flying around the verse, enjoying the sights and scenery. Also, really starting to get involved in a lot of PvP and dogfighting with the dual sticks. So come on in, hang out, check me out. I'm there for you.
Mm-hmm. Tell them what's your name on Twitch?
I am KEMI65, just as it says down here and in the links. KEMI65, Twitch TV.
Awesome. Fast Cart, how about you?
People can find me on twitter.com/fast_cart. I'm on Miss Hart's 80 show on Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern. Don't forget there's a time change, so 1 hour later on UTC now. Also on Table of Horrors on Wednesday and Friday. Oh, we have a show on Friday the 13th. I'm not sure if we're going to do anything special out there. And I'm on here and occasionally on Friday Night Live.
Yeah. And Griffin Gaming RPG, you guys can find me here. If you guys were getting frame drops tonight, I think it's Twitch, so please forgive us, because I know I had to refresh my browser multiple times tonight. I don't know what was going on. Some people over the weekend, I know I was on Paul's show the other day, they were having some problems too. So I don't know if Twitch is just...
I've been having problems for like a week.
Yeah, so guys, forgive us if it was something goofy, because on our end, things were running smooth, Twitch. But I got about 51,000 frame drop rates that popped up through Twitch tonight. Now that's very unusual. We normally don't have that happen. So hopefully you guys were able to follow the show well. But again, try to tune in with us on Fridays at 11:30 p.m. Eastern Time for Friday Night Live, or also tune in next Sunday for our support ship show, the Starship Show on support ships. We are going to raid Maddie LaRusso's talk show. It's called LaRusso's Lounge. You guys make sure you all give a shout to them. I think Maddie LaRusso's there and the Chody is there. Give them a shout, send them some love, watch them for a little bit, put some time on their clock for them. And as always, we appreciate you guys. So tonight, signing off for fastcart, signing off for Kimmy and myself. Love, peace, and soul. We'll see you guys next week.
Call me.
We'll see you guys next week. Take care.